Hi everybody, I'm Bence Komlosi. I would like to invite you and welcome you in our regular Architecture is a Human Right Facebook live discussion series. Today, I will have Narda Beunders as the guest. She is co-founder of the Roofforhumanity. So we will talk a lot about building community spaces and communities on field. All around the world, so I think it will be a really interesting discussion with Narda. I will invite her in a few seconds, but before this I would like to talk a very few seconds about what is this whole discussion about. So with the emergency architecture and human right and the worldarchitects, we started let's say a movement which is stating that architecture is a human right. We already have a manifesto on the page of the worldarchitects. If you Google worldarchitects and architecture is a human right, you will find this page where we share a manifesto, like a kind of a seed to start the discussion with all of you. What does it mean? It's talk about freedom, equality, security in architecture, or about the built environment, the new ways of doing architecture, and so on. And also we are collecting now articles and projects on this topic, and we started this Facebook live series. We already had 4 guests: Cyril Hanape, Emilio Brandao, Rania Cavazma, and Pedro Neto. Sorry, 5, because last week we had also Tanya Schneider. And then so it's developing this whole process. We invite all of you to join this process and also share your thoughts and share your projects with us. We already gained some emails from some of you, so we are trying to respond these emails as soon as possible. It's in progress. And yeah, so this is a very few words about this kind of movement that we started. And then we would like, I'm still waiting a bit for Narda, but in the meantime, I'm also like always trying to bring some books, because a lot of you are asking for, okay, but what does it mean and how could we like move on and what kind of projects can we look for that is somehow discussing this topic of architecture and human rights. So here are these few books I would like to introduce you. I still can't see you, Narda, so please try to do something if you can. Like this first book, it's Think Global, Build Social. This book is based on an exhibition that is like traveling all around the world, and it talks about materials, participation, housing, design and build, culture, and so on. And it shows several projects from all around the world that are somehow discussing these topics. And so this one, I think it's very interesting, like Anna Hedinger, or there are many good projects, housing, school projects, and so on. This book is about architecture and human rights. I will probably have, now I can add you, Narda, so a few seconds and you are online. This is by Tiziana Panizza Cashahun, and I hope we will have her in a few weeks. And so she will explain her book and what does it mean, how does she try to approach this topic. Then this book, it's Camps Revisited. It's by 3 authors, Irit Katz, Diana Martin, and Claudio Mincha. And it's kind of visiting camps and trying to understand how refugee camps, formal, informal camps function. Then this book, Humanitarian Architecture, it says, never has the demand been so urgent for architects to respond to the design and planning challenges of rebuilding post-disaster sites and cities. In a very few nutshell. There is like several interesting authors in this book, so I highly recommend this book to all of you. Then this one, Design for Good, it's by John Carey, forward is by Belinda Gates, and it states that a new era of architecture for everyone. So I think it also makes sense to take a look inside and check the projects from all around the world again, from housing, community projects, and school, and so on. And last, for today, this one, it's more like a school project by the students of Cyril Hanape from the Belleville School of Architecture in Paris. They visited refugee camps, informal refugee camps, like in Calais or in Dunkirk, and they kind of summarized what they found there, how people acted and reacted on the current situation on site. So these are just a few books, and I think it's time to invite Narda.
Hi, hello.
Super. Hi, Narda. Hi. Nice to
Hello.
meet you. Super.
Yeah, okay. Nice to see you.
Great. So I already introduced you in a very few words, and so I showed some books, but I think I'm still would like to, before you start sharing your thoughts, I still would like to introduce a few more things. So I started to follow your work in 2015 without knowing you or without knowing anything about what you do or why you do that. And I think it's quite interesting. What have you done in the last years? I just checked again your website and your Facebook page, the Roofforhumanity. And as I remembered, yeah, you started it somehow in 2015 with the first project in Greece, and then a second project in Greece, and then you moved a little bit to Venice and to Amsterdam, and then you were looking for a new site somewhere in Lebanon, and then you at the end you ended up in Kenya. So I think it's a super interesting process, and in one hand I have many questions connected to this, but in other hand I would like also to ask you just to reflect a little bit on this architecture as a human right. What do you think? How does it anyhow connect to your work, and what could that mean in your field work?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me for this discussion. I think the topic is very important to talk about, and especially because it also raises a lot of questions. The title, Architecture is a Human Right, already also for me pops up a lot of questions in my head, like what kind of architecture are we talking about, and how do you mean like a human right in sense of yeah, what is the quality then, or what is the basic needs for this architecture? So I also get a lot of questions about it, but in the other hand I can also explain how it relates to how I work as an architect, and why I started in 2015 with doing this kind of projects. So there are a lot of things we can discuss about.
Yeah.
First of all, I think it's interesting the topic architecture in this sentence. What kind of architecture do you mean by this subject?
Yeah, I think everything that is somehow what is exactly who defines what is architecture, but like I think architecture is about built environment. It's about our environment. How do we use this? Even like the unbuilt environment. How do we save spaces for nature, and so on. So I think the scale is also depending on. It can be like a very small something, but it can be like a whole city. And so
then the next question.
Just go for it.
My next question would be like, do you mean by is a human right that everybody should have access to these places, or that designing these places should be more wider open to anybody that wants to participate? Or yeah, I'm not sure about
I think if this one
what this human right is.
Yeah, I think human rights is something like you have a human right for having a roof, or having security, or having freedom in terms of moving. So, or even like having access to communities, it's a human right. So I think if we talk about these kind of human rights, then we can immediately kind of connect these thoughts with spaces. So if you talk about roof or security, then we kind of think about home or housing. If we talk about communities, then we talk about community spaces. If we talk about education, then we talk about maybe schools and so on. So I think this is how I
so
see
it's
this kind of...
mostly connections. You see it as a connection to what the human rights are, and then related to what kind of architecture connects with that one.
Yes, and I think in 2016 we started to develop this kind of idea of spaces and programs in the spaces, so activities, and architecture by itself is not enough, but you cannot organize programs if you don't have a space. So it's always like running, these things are running hand in hand. So if you talk about security, then you need a space that secures you. Sometimes it's an online space, sometimes it's an offline space, sometimes it's only in your mind, this space, but it's a space. And if you talk about programs, you can always need a space to...
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a really interesting topic, because if you look at different cultures all over the world, you could also question what kind of spaces you need for this security or for education or for. So it depends really on which place you are, how it looks like. That's another subject, but I think that's why it's also very interesting.
So you think that in different culture, it has a very different kind of understanding or meaning?
No, yeah, maybe other need for these spaces.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you talk about playing or doing games, in some cultures they do it outside under a tree, instead of as in the Netherlands, we do it inside on the table. So there are a lot of different spaces that you can connect to different programs, which makes it more interesting for me personally, how to deal with this question.
And so
because
what
it's
is your
really
experience?
related to,
As I would really like to talk about the projects that you've done. So I think that you are like kind of really like a role model for doing things. So many of us, we talk about many things, and I think you also talk a lot about many things during the whole year in your life. But at the end, you also really go on site and you work with communities, you work with people. And so how do you do this? That would be like a super interesting... and in this work, how do you see this human rights maybe, or...
No, you are right that it started in 2015, and it's actually a really personal feeling that I had visiting Lesbos, an island in Greece, where I think everybody knows how it goes there, with a lot of refugees that came there and are still there. And for me, it was really clear that I studied architecture because I wanted to understand how you could build a good building or a good space. And especially the feeling that you have in a space is for me an important thing. So when I was there and I saw people just living on the streets instead of having a house above, or a roof above their heads, made me very sad in a way, because I think every person should have the possibility to have a place where you feel comfortable and can sleep in a safe way. And there were many people that were just who left their own home because of war or natural violence, disasters, and they were just without anything above their heads to protect them. So when I was thinking about my profession as an architect and about this issue and the fact that there were many people without anything, I thought I have to do something about this, because I studied for it. So I needed to do something. And another reason is, or another subject of this action was that I think it's really important for people to have social contact instead of only be as an individual somewhere in a small space where you can sleep, it's also very important to get in contact with people. And that's why I started to figure out how I could build something for people, and also together with the people that were there, to let them feel more human again, actually. That was the basic starting point for the first project. And it relates really to the things that you mentioned as a human right, like education, but also social connections, and to develop yourself, to feel what's the word in English? To
feel important or part of the society, or
yeah, exactly. The last
having
one was
a perspective.
Yeah. And so I just thought it was good to see how you could do a project together with these people, to build something that they could use for their daily activities, like teaching the children, having meetings to maybe only drink tea or whatever, but that you feel that you have a kind of normal situation again, also during the daily life. That's basically how it started. I'm not sure.
And so the first project was this project in Lesbos. This is more like, as I see, if I'm just checking now the roofforhumanity.com, where there is like this project, and the first project is this one. It's a more like formal, so it has like a very perfectly formed structure, like nice tarp on the top. So everything is kind of really like still from a drawing, an architectural drawing.
Yes, yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because that one, the first one, was really like how I thought about to give a space to people which felt like an embracement, like if you give somebody a hug somehow, or you grab somebody, you feel very warm and close to each other. And this feeling was exactly what I did on the beaches there when I was visiting Lesbos the first time, to help people on the shore. And I try to put that feeling into the architecture of the first building. So the inside is very soft and kind of round shaped, comfortable, and you are really inside, and the outside is kind of rough and very straight, because I think it's also showing the hard and tough road that they went to, leaving their homes. So it's more like a aesthetical thing in this one, that I wanted to show what I felt on the beaches, that is needed to give these people a welcome. And because I couldn't be there every day of the year, I thought that you can also put that into architecture.
And do you think it worked out? So you managed so that was the concept.
Yeah, it worked out, but it's not very practical. What the materials that I used for the inside, for example, were not very sustainable for this purpose, and especially not in the situation of being in a refugee camp. The maintenance is not the same as you are in a place where people have the money and the equipment to maintain these spaces. So a lot, very short. Now I don't know exactly how many months after we built it, the inside changed a lot. So they made it more more strong for this kind of purpose. They made the walls with wood instead of with the fabric. So they developed their own spaces to have it more useful, actually. And for me, that was a very good thing to see, because I think it's very important that they make it their own, and that it's not my thing that is there, but that is their own space that they use for their purposes.
And
yeah.
I think this kind of rigidity somehow also came to my mind when I saw this project in that time. This kind of with the concrete and with this very like rigid. And then in the next project that was in Kavala, if I'm right, this more like a wooden structure. It's also hosting a community in an informal camp. And so that was more. It was more like about this really this warm feeling and possibility for change, but also the community involvement.
Both that one was more developed in a way that I thought about only designing the structure. And everything else, like the walls, the floor, and everything, they decided on site. So I didn't really thought about how it should look, but they told me, like, we want the walls to be closed, we want this to be that, and so I only designed the structure, which was a hexagon space in the middle, in the center, and then 6 spaces around that one that should be filled with their needs. Like I asked the community, in that case, the men of the camp said already in the beginning, this space should be for the women and the children, because they already built their own small community place. So I talked with the women in the camp and the children, like, what do you want to do in this community center? And during these discussions and workshops, they decided, like, we want one space for having manicure, like the women want to teach the young girls how to do this. Then one space should be for the children to give English and Arabic lessons. One other space was for kind of theater, that they could play with dolls behind a window, and so they decided everything themselves, and that's why we made it like this. So I didn't really had the picture in that case. That was a big difference in the first one than in the second one.
I think it's also exactly like there is just this comment that it's that the design are more than aesthetic, your design. So design of these spaces. I think it's also like, as I see your work, it's a development process. No, so in the beginning, it was more about this aesthetic, as you said, and then already in the second project, like for me, for me, the floor is one of the elements in this space, which is something like really like shivering. So if I like. We don't talk about this whole camp situation. If you just talk about this space and all the positivity that is there, I think it's really like bringing the whole aesthetic to a new level.
And exactly, the floor was for me a big surprise, because I didn't thought about anything like this. But I asked one of the guys that already told me from the beginning. I was a tailor in Syria. And I said, oh, that's nice. Maybe you can help me building this space. And just, that was in the beginning, just general, like helping me build this project. And then he said again, yeah, but I was a tailor, so I don't know exactly how I could do this, these other things. So I said, no, you just wait. We will figure it out. We will find something to put tiles somewhere. And then I thought, oh, it would be nice to have the tiles on the floor, maybe. So I talked with him about it, and he said, yeah, that could be a good idea. And then I find a very nice Greek man, and he had a lot of materials for me. He brought the concrete, the cement, all these things, and then I saw that he also had tiles, and he had some waste materials that were just all different colors. And I asked him, would it be possible to get that for free, maybe? So I got this from this Greek guy, and then I asked the Syrian guy okay, we have all these beautiful colors. What should we do with it? could we make a mosaic? But he didn't really know knew what a mosaic was. So I showed him some work of, now I forgot his name, in Barcelona.
Gaudi, maybe.
Yeah, thank you. I showed it on some pictures, and he said, "Yeah, but I cannot do this. How could I do this?" So I said to him, "Yeah, you should just break the tiles and then make small pieces." And he said, "Break the tiles? No, I'm not going to do that." So he was all the time saying, "No, I cannot do this." And then I just give him some pictures to have some inspiration. I said, "Just think about it some days, then we see about it." And then after 2 days, he said, "Okay, I think we just try it." I said, "Okay, let's try." And then he was feeling more comfortable every day, and he teach the others how to do it. And it was really beautiful because they just made this plan for themselves with the star in the middle, because I always called them my stars of the team, because I really like to stimulate the people that they have, if they have talent, to develop that. So they wanted to have the star in the middle that people could shine. And I was really happy with the result, because I didn't really imagine this when I started this project.
That's cool. I brought this "Everything is Possible." I just noted it today somehow. And then while we were trying to get to the point to use the Facebook, I just said like I should use it. And I think this is the moment in the discussion where this really makes a lot of sense. So how to empower this community that they can do everything that they want.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of wish, no?
Yeah, and also to find a way to combine possibilities. Like you get a lot of chances, and I don't know. I think you come a lot further if you ask people to join, or if you just go on research in this area, like very local, to ask around, like what could we do, and then you find out a lot of surprises for yourself, but also to connect some possibilities makes really a lot happening. Like, yeah, what you say, everything is possible then suddenly. It's really beautiful to also to be part of this, and to see the community be much more, that they get more self-esteem, and that they want to bring up their own ideas. It's, yeah, I really like it.
I think with the, you said previously, this quality, or we discussed also like the architecture. I think architecture is a human right. We also have to talk about quality. So quality spaces for everyone, and this kind of quality and the aesthetic. So I think the floor of this building, this second building, it combines the quality with this aesthetic. So it's really a nice something. So yeah. And then, sorry, we have to kind of move a little bit on.
Yeah,
but then you went also with your kind of team, or if you could also talk a little bit about the team or your supporters, or with the people you work with, that would be interesting. So then you moved to Venice for the Biennale, I think, or after the Biennale in 2016.
Yeah, it was during the Biennale that we went there. But to say something about the team, my team is mostly based on local people connected with the people that we built the space for. So in case of these camp settlements or refugee places, I work with local people from the country or from the city, and with the refugees, and then with a lot of international volunteers, or with people from the host village. But in Venice, it was more like a cooperation with an NGO here in the Netherlands, Revest Life, and they are now transformed into Makers Unite, which is still working with newcomers here in the Netherlands. And we wanted to combine these two NGOs to show in Venice that it's really important to start a dialogue. So it's mostly actually what we are doing now, but then in the public space, we built there some bamboo domes to invite people in this space. And this space also is a kind of round shape, which also makes you feel very very much inside if you are there, but it's kind of strange because it's really open. So the shape of the shape of the space is really helping to make the community feeling. And then we invited a lot of people that were just passing by to talk about the subject, which we are doing now, like how architecture could support people that are, how do you say that, underprivileged, like that they don't have the possibility to stay at their own house and home, and they left. So we wanted to talk about how architects should be reacting on this issue. That's the reason why we were in Finnish building this. Yeah.
And this was, I think it's more like a proactive idea. So you really wanted to do this, so you build it.
Yeah.
I guess. And then the next project, maybe we can move also on. Like the next project was this kind of, if I'm right, this kind of space in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I did this project because I wanted to try how it worked to work with the community of newcomers in the Netherlands, to build a space for people that were guests in Amsterdam. It was for a campsite where people stayed one night or a few nights to explore the city. And we built this community space there where people could eat breakfast or do games in the evening, or could come together. So it was kind of also, again, just experiencing how it works to work in the Netherlands in the same kind of way. And the reason that I also wanted to do it is maybe also connected to what I read in the topic of the manifest, which is written for this discussion or dialogue. Let me think how I could explain it. You asked me a question in what is freedom in architecture? And for me, also freedom means that you can kind of build what is necessary on that moment, or what is needed for that purpose or for that people. And a lot of times in architecture, if you look at, in my opinion, if you look in the Netherlands, how this process is going and how the rules are very strict in my case, there's not a lot of freedom to move in a way that in the process you can change the outcome. And I find that a pity, because a lot of times you can really get a better result if you really listen to what is happening on the moment. So I was trying to find out how it could be possible in Amsterdam to build something which is moving with the process.
Yeah.
And
so
it was a big.
Sorry.
It was a bit of a challenge, because the municipality, the people that were controlling this safety of buildings in Amsterdam, also passed by this campsite, of course. So I got a lot of questions about the structure. Like normally you have to.
Like an engineering, if it's rigid enough, or.
Yeah, exactly. And normally you have to apply a lot of detailing drawings.
Yeah.
And then they improve it or not, if they approve it. But this time, this inspector came to the site to inspect every building on this campsite and also the community space. So it was challenging, but I managed again to explain how it is built, and it was totally strong enough. But it's difficult to, how do you say,
to approve or to show it without details, without drawings.
Yeah.
Without, no?
And also the standard that they want to have is different than what I think was needed for this temporary space. So
I think the Lakaton and Vassal buildings or their architecture is also trying to talk a little bit about this freedom in architecture. And in one hand, they are also discussing these issues of regulations. So how could we change the regulations, or how could we make them more like flexible? And I think this is perfect that you actually, if I do remember well, I was thinking about exactly this, like, oh my God, this structure is like so, so like thin. So everything was so thin and so like, almost like no structure. So I was thinking about like, if it's strong enough, but I was like, of course it's gonna be enough. It's just.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's exactly what I like to build it yourself, because you can really feel if it is strong enough or not. I worked, the first project that I did in this kind of areas was in Malawi. And I worked there for the foundation to build. And this founder of this foundation told me, if you feel you can walk on the roof, it's strong enough. So you just have to kind of test it yourself in a way.
Well,
and I was really surprised because I thought, how can you, are you serious? Don't I have to ask a calculator to calculate this roof structure before I start even building it? He said, no, you just do it, and then you feel, or you can just kind of test it in the process. So you get much more. Of course, I calculated the sizes for myself, but I also, you trust a lot more than if you see it happening and you test it, than if you only let other people do it. It's I don't know.
I think if you could go a little bit back, there is a question about how can we involve, let's say, the newcomers as experts on this field. And my answer, just to say, I think my answer would be there is a lot of organizations working on this topic. So I think the people, the newcomers, or the people who are interested in, they should just like join these organizations, and they could like share their knowledge, and sometimes it also needs proactivity from all sides, because you cannot reach out to everyone one by one.
No, I think also, if I'm understanding the question right, it's about how to involve newcomers in a specific country or in this kind of projects. But for example, in the Netherlands, there are many organizations that try to connect people with a skill or with talent to different projects. So if you are talking from being the newcomer, you should try to get access to these organizations, or to maybe write a message on Facebook, like, I'm searching for a project in this field. Do you know anybody? And then I think the connections can be very easily made by just telling what you can do, like what is your skill. For example, in these refugee camps, I always ask, like, do you know somebody that can do the concrete? And then I'm just asking around, and then there are people standing up, like, I know how to do it. So it's very easy because you are together, kind of. And in a big country or a big city like Amsterdam, it's maybe a little bit more difficult, but you can also access a lot through internet, I think, to find connections.
So just Google it and just contact and just go for it.
And ask, I think asking is the first thing. So you just ask people around you, or ask on the internet, and then it can be more easy.
What I also think like important that you shouldn't have too much expectations on the beginning. If you have a too strong wish or will, what do you want to do, or how do you want to do it? You will not find a kind of match. You just have to start it somehow with a very small first contact, and then you can develop it further.
Yeah, and that's in every case, actually. I think for at least in the work that I do, is also the expectation shouldn't be very much, because you don't know exactly how it's going to happen, and you don't know who is in your team. So it's just being flexible and open for what is happening on the moment. And that a lot of times can really be surprising for yourself, but also for their selves, because they sometimes don't even know that they can do it. So it's really empowering in the whole community, instead of only for one person or for me, or for, it's just happening in a way.
Yeah. Okay. I think there is this kind of there is an answer for this question that we started. Like, yeah, if there are people who want to talk on this channel, really exactly on this discussion channel about their experience or their stories, and I think it's also part of this whole discussion to get to know the needs or the problems. So if we could also share some stories that are really talking about the needs, the problems, the issues in the Netherlands or anywhere else in the world, I think this would be very important. So to answer this comment, yes, it's open also for this kind of discussions. And then I would like to just finish maybe with this last story from Kenya. In a very few, in a nutshell, what is there something that you would like?
I can say about Kenya. I can tell many beautiful stories, because it was really an amazing project, and I'm not sure why it was so complete in a way, because for example, I really find it important that all the people in the team get the possibility to develop themselves. And I saw so many people growing in their own skills, that it was really beautiful for me to be part of this team, because they really went over their own expectations, but also above mine. I asked one of the guys to make a simple table, for example, to play the board games in this community space, and he was just starting it, like making the connections not visible inside this wooden table structure. And I said, yeah, but it's not really necessary to do this. It's just a normal, simple table. But he said, no, I want to do this. And then he made the whole table like so smooth and round edges, and then the connections for the legs were also in a very special way of wood
Joints.
Yeah, so he just made a very special table for me and for the space, and I was so surprised about that, because it's just they wanted to make it very special for the whole community, and that was the whole time in this project, very much their own input that made it very special. So and what was also very beautiful in this project is that I really combined the host village, which is from the area where we were building. That's Turkana, in the northern part of Kenya. They also had their own traditional way of wood craftsmanship. So I also tried to combine all the different parts from all these cultures, and that was really amazing how everybody could add their own skills.
Yeah,
so
I think I just shared one of the chairs, no, that
Yeah.
you, I mean, this was like fantastic, like to see how like the local craftsmanship is developing itself.
Yeah, and it's really beautiful, because they were working together with the people from, for example, from Southern Sudan, from Uganda, from Kenya. So all of the people were teaching each other. It was really cool just to see it happening. That one of the Kenyan guys asked them, like, how can I do this chair? Because he also wanted to learn it. So it was really amazing.
Yeah, so Narda, I think we could keep talking till tomorrow. And this is like always a kind of question from the audience, like how long is it supposed or should be? And I'm saying, like, I think we still need these 40 minutes to develop the discussion to a new level and to make it really like free. So I think it takes some time, but I would say thanks a lot for the whole discussion. And I think we will keep talking, and we will keep we will come back to you in a few months, and we can also reflect again on the findings and the further projects if you might have some. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you too a lot. I really yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, I really think I will follow. I will follow this discussion a lot because I think the topic is very interesting, and it's good to see also and hear from different perspectives how our people are working on this field. So I'm really happy that I could join.
Great, thanks a lot. And on the next week we won't have anyone, but in 2 weeks probably we will have someone again, someone really interesting. So see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, cool.
Have a nice evening.
Same to you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.